If you don't know much about Project 8, I don't blame you. There exist like two opinions on this game. Either they think it's straight poopy, or they don't know it exists. Me personally, I think it's alright. Now don't get too upset. I don't think it's amazing or anything, but before I explain my mixed feelings on this game, it's important to see where the series was when it released. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1, 2, and 3 were massive hits with just about everyone. They made Tony Hawk 10 million power in Rise of Kingdoms, and Activision was eager for another hit. So naturally, on the third day, Neversoft rose from the cave and released Pro Skater 4. It had everything. It had spine transfers, the smoothest physics in the series up to that point, a Star War, John Iron Maiden, and a new and improved career mode. Pro Skater 4 made Activision so much money they upgraded to Town Hall 9 and became serious. Tony Hawk Underground added a new grunge-inspired style and a story with characters and plot and cutscenes in this Deuce Canoe. It also added walking with your legs. This is cool, I swear. Underground 2 nailed the physics to what most people think is the best in the series, but also turned the entire game into a Jackass ad, but it was still pretty good. The problems begin with American Wasteland. Now, while American Wasteland is my favorite in the whole series, it is not seen as that great. Common criticisms include the BMX stuff being stupid, only having one unlockable character and it's Billy Joe Armstrong, and also the entire game is super easy and basically a tutorial. Now, I see where they're coming from, but listen, the game is pink now, and also the soundtrack is all bangers. It's the first game to have an OST, and the level design is...
Hey, that's a lot of words about not Project 8.
Who are you, and why are you in my house?
You didn't pay the sink tax.
The what now?
Listen, you better start talking about Project 8 before I turn your laundry machine into a pooping machine.
Okay, fine. Project 8 came out in 2006 and was the first game to be primarily developed for the 360. It featured an all-new saucy epic engine. It had mocap, which was done by some of the skaters in-game, such as Rodney Mullen, Daewon Song, and Travis Barker, everyone's favorite drummer. The story takes a backseat. Tony Hawk wants to find the best skaters in the world, the top 8, so he puts a bunch of challenges around the town, and whoever gets them all is the coolest guy, I guess. The story is mostly just a setup for the gameplay. The only things that happen after the initial setup are pro skaters contacting you to do their challenges to unlock them for free skate. You'd think this would be bad, especially considering we're missing Mindy's contribution to the story, but really, I think the structure is the best thing in the game. Each challenge features 3 different levels of completion, the first basically being free, the second one being something you might have to restart to do, and the third being pretty hard. I have spent close to 70 hours in this game just grinding and attempting challenges because I enjoy the system that much. If you're the type of person who likes to complete a game's story and be done, this isn't for you, but if you love checklists, you will be enthused with the amount of content here.
Wait, but what do you do in these challenges?
Dude, it's on the screen. Can't you see?
Listen, the shades make it real hard.
Dude, if you keep hanging around here, you're gonna have to pay rent, you know that? There are a few different types of challenges, the simplest being the most common. You grind a ledge or manual or not a spin even, and you have to hit all the sections and reach the end goal. You may think that sounds pretty simple, but some of them have some pretty hard requirements. There's this one in the Park District where you have to hit all the sections and also get like 1,000,000 points. It's kind of ridiculous. Because Project 8 has a much heavier engine and fewer special tricks, it's pretty hard to get giant scores in this game, meaning any challenge where you have to get a super high score is pretty dang tough. The next one you'll probably run into is the Photo Challenge, where you have to do just a specific trick with a specific gap. Usually they're pretty easy, but the sit goal can be pretty tough. Shout out to the very first one, that one took me a while having low stats. The next two are part of the selling point for this game. Nail the Trick and Bailing, the 2 new mechanics. Nail the Trick is something a lot of people have issues with. You click both the sticks in, and the game zooms in on your board, gives you some extra height, and allows you to control your feet in slow motion in order to flick the board however you want. I think it's pretty cool, and offensive at worst, but some people think it's a major issue. Me personally, I could go either way. The next challenge are the bailing challenge, and the new bailing physics kind of add to the general unfinished vibe this game has, but I'll get to that later. Now, when you bail, instead of getting on the ground and you can do a freak out, instead, you flop around like a doofus and you can break all your bones and get a high hospital bill. Most of the bail challenges have requirements in that ballpark. Break a certain amount of bones, get a high enough hospital bill, it's kind of whatever. But it is very jank, and it kind of clashes with the game's more realistic style. I don't know why these two were the newest mechanics they wanted to add, because they completely clash. You have realistic skateboarding, and then if you screw up that realistic skateboarding, you do the goofiest crash in the entire series that flies you across the entire map. I don't know what they were thinking. The last two are less common, probably because there's only one per area. There's the competitions, which aren't like previous competitions where you have to compete against other skaters to get a high score. In these competitions, there are separate audiences and bleachers, and you have to do tricks in front of all three of them in order to keep them all entertained. The sit goal for these are really annoying, and frankly, I haven't even bothered to go for most of them. The final one is Classic Mode, and if you haven't played the other Tony Hawk games, Classic Mode may be a little confusing for you, but I'll lay it out. In the older games, you had a time limit of 2 minutes, and you had to explore the level to find skate letters, combo letters, find different floating objects, do certain gaps, get a high score, stuff like that. So in this game, they take each individual part of the open world.
Wait a minute, this game has an open world?
Dude, are you even paying attention?
No, I've been stealing from your fridge.
Can't I just make a review of Project 8 without freaks in my house?
This is an apartment.
That is not the point, and you're homeless, so shut up. American Wasteland was advertised as having one big interconnected world, but then when it came out, everyone was like, what the heck? There are loading hallways between the levels. This is an open world, there may as well be a menu. Well, Project 8 shows why that is. This game is all interconnected. You can skate anywhere, wherever you want. But instead of loading hallways, you get freezing and stuttering. Combine that with the already low frame rate, the buggy bailing, the heavier physics, and the incredibly washed out graphics, you get the main reason this game feels kind of undercooked. It just doesn't feel great if I'm being honest. The PS3 version has it even worse with a standard of like 20 FPS. Now that I've brought up different versions of Project 8, I should probably bring up the last gen version. I have this copy that I got from a local store when I moved here, but surprisingly, Project 8 on the OG Xbox is the only Tony Hawk game you can't play on 360. Like, that's ridiculous. What a waste of money. All the footage you'll be seeing is me playing the PS2 version for the very first time on emulator. And you know what? In just 5 minutes, I could tell this was the better version. The last gen version of Project 8 has none of the downsides of the 360 version while having its own unique upsides. To start with, it just looks better. I know it's the PS2, so it's like 540p, but it's not disgustingly washed out. It's much easier on the eyes. It also has most of the original areas as levels, while bringing in some of its own. It even expands on some of the areas. One thing I think is pretty cool is the downhill level, which functionally is like Downhill Jam, because this game coincided with the release of Downhill Jam on the DS and Wii. If that was all, then this would already be the better version. But it also retains most of the goals and challenges from the original, so the amount of content stays comparable. Not only that, but because it uses the older engine, it just has a much better feel in general. Getting good at the main game took a while, but this felt natural. It isn't exactly the same as previous, it's still heavier than American Wasteland, but it's not nearly as clunky as the next gen version. The final thing I want to say about the last gen version is because they abandoned the open world for obvious hardware limitations, they don't have the challenges just lying around and you can start them whenever. You have to talk to an NPC to start them just like any other mission. Which I think is a bad thing because I love the structure of the next gen version. However, I don't think it's a net negative because they're still in the game and they're still almost exactly the same, at least from what I saw.
Oh my god, is there anything else?
Project 8 is a good game.
I don't know if I made it clear enough, but I do actually like both of these games. They're not great, especially not the 360 version, but I like what they tried enough to keep playing over the course of months. I won't deny, though, this was the end of the series for most. After this, it was Proving Grounds, which took the series in an even more realistic and gritty direction. Sadly for that game, Skate 1 came out just a month prior and did the exact same thing a lot better. I might look at Proving Grounds eventually if I can get my hands on it, but considering nobody bought the dang thing, it's kinda hard to find it secondhand.
You know, at the end of the day, I didn't really expect the PS2 version to be the better version.
Well, you should have.
Yeah, why is that?
I invented the PS2.
No, you didn't.
Wanna bet?
Not particularly.